Hello, and thanks for joining us at this hour. I'm Daniel Chef for Arirang News. Let's start with the headlines. The Greek Prime Minister's desperation attempt to save the country from financial collapse is rejected by Eurozone ministers who say no talks until this weekend's referendum. This as Greece braces for more chaos on the streets outside most of its shuttered banks. Korea's current account surplus is in the black again in May, but a closer look at the record 29-month streak reveals some discouraging figures. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is losing officials through his policy of fear, including executions of those daring to question his leadership. There are reports of a growing number of mid-level officials defecting to the south, fearing for their lives. Let's start with the latest developments in Greece. It looks like the troubled country's fate will be decided after a critical referendum slated for Sunday, as the Eurozone ministers have ruled out any talks until after that vote. Our Da-eun starts us off.
Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras made yet another set of proposals to Greece's Eurozone partners on Wednesday in his latest attempt to save the country from financial collapse. While accepting most of the terms previously laid out by international creditors, he requested a 2-year bailout amounting to 29.1 billion euros. But the Eurozone ministers rebuffed the proposal, saying there will be no further talks until after the referendum. Greeks will vote yes or no on the current bailout terms on Sunday, which experts say will decide the fate of the country's membership in the Eurozone. According to a survey published by a local newspaper on Wednesday, 54% of Greeks said they will vote no. Greece's socialist government has been urging Greeks to vote no, but it wants more talks so Athens can stay in the Eurozone.
We are prepared to accept even strict measures as long as the framework in which they are contained are sustainable, so Greece can grow and Grexit disappears.
Meanwhile, IMF chief Christine Lagarde says she wants to see Greece take deliberate moves toward reforms before providing it with debt relief. Her remarks came after Athens technically defaulted on its 1.5 billion euro debt to the agency. Da-eun, Arirang News.
Some tragic incident coming in. One more person died today from a bus accident in China. The Korean government sent its apology and condolences to the victims of their family members. The main cause of the accident is still under investigation. Our Kim Ji-yeon gives us the updates.
11 people are dead after a bus plunged off a bridge in the Chinese city of Jian, Jilin province on Wednesday. The bus carrying 26 people, mostly Koreans, fell into a river some 15 meters below. Included among the victims are said to be officials at the local Government Officials Development Institute who are participating in a 5-day training program until Friday.
I offer a sincere apology to the victims and their families. An emergency response team have been dispatched to the accident site this morning. We will do our best to support the families of the victims, as well as the rescue and recovery efforts.
The Korean government says it'll provide expenses and airplane tickets to 2 family members of each of the victims. China's foreign ministry also sent its condolences to the victims and their family members and says it has been in close communication with the Korean embassy in Beijing to jointly deal with follow-up measures. Local authorities in China are still investigating the main cause of the accident and the extent of damages. Local media outlets in China have pointed to the fault of the driver, citing that around 95 people have died in traffic accidents last year in China, mainly due to driver error. Meanwhile, media outlets in Korea pointed to a slow rescue operation, saying it took more than an hour for the rescue team to arrive at the site. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
And in local politics, tensions peaked within rival parties today. The ruling Saenuri Party's feud continued to escalate, while the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy remained divided over their party's newly elected Secretary General. Our Kim Young-gil has more on these growing internal conflicts.
The ruling bloc's loyalists to President Park Geun-hye continue to demand the resignation of the party's embattled full leader Yoo Sung-min.
What's wrong with asking him to resign after he has put the country through such hardship?
Saenuri Chair Kim Moo-sung suspended Thursday's Supreme Council meeting. Even some pro-Pak figures said lawmaker Kim Tae-ho crossed the line.
I don't think it was right for lawmaker Kim to have lambasted him in that manner.
Floor leader Yu's sympathizers claim President Park went too far in demanding his resignation after she vetoed the controversial parliamentary bill, saying it violates the principle of checks and balances in government. Yu made it clear that he would not step down and carried out his scheduled party duties. The MPD's full leader Lee Jong-gul reconveyed his grievances over the appointment of Choi Jae-sung as the party's Secretary General and ended his 9-day walkout protest, resuming his Supreme Council activities. Chairman Moon Jae-in's appointment of Choi last week was met with criticism, with some opposition lawmakers accusing Choi of not representing the politics of unity and harmony. Choi is believed to be part of a faction linked with former President Roh Moo-hyun. He'll be tasked with preparing for next year's general elections and selecting candidate nominations. Critics like Lee Jong-gul say the appointment is a signal that Moon Jae-in's faction will continue to dominate the party. Amid the political disarray, the two parties, however, did agree to open the House Steering Committee meeting on Friday to set dates for future parliamentary business, including auditing government offices, settling accounts, and budget proposals. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
In other news, wrapping up some 80 days of investigation into the so-called Seongwan-jong bribery scandal, prosecutors announced the interim results on Thursday. The decision was made to indict two politicians, current Gyeongsangnam-do Province Governor Hong Jun-pyo and former Prime Minister Lee Wan-gu, on charges of receiving kickbacks from the late businessman. Sung committed suicide in April, leaving a memo listing the names of 8 high-profile politicians who allegedly accepted bribes. The investigation team, however, decided against indicting the other 6 politicians on the list, including 3 former and current presidential chiefs of staff, on the grounds of lack of evidence or expiration of the statute of limitations. The team will also continue investigating 2 additional politicians not on the list, 6-term Saenuri Party lawmaker Lee In-jae and 4-term opposition lawmaker Kim Han-gil, on charges of receiving bribes. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy labeled the result lopsided, and urged special prosecutors to re-examine the scandal. An additional case of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, was reported in Korea earlier today, ending a 4-day period with no new infections. This brings the total number of people diagnosed with the MERS virus to 183. The health ministry says the latest confirmed case is a nurse from Seoul's Samsung Medical Center, the epicenter of the outbreak, responsible for 88 infections. Another nurse also tested positive for the disease in a primary test and will go through further examination. No MERS-related deaths have been reported for 2 consecutive days, leaving the death toll at 33. Meanwhile, 5 more people have been discharged from hospital, taking the number of fully recovered patients to 102. However, the country still has over 2,200 suspected cases. It should come as a little surprise by now, but Korea's current account surplus is in the black yet again, extending its surplus streak to a record 39 months. It's not all good news, though, as recent surpluses have more to do with falling imports rather than rising exports. Our Kim Min-ji has more.
Korea posted another current account surplus in May. The Bank of Korea says preliminary data show the surplus hit $8.65 billion, up more than 6% from the previous month. With that said, Korea has broken its previous record surplus run of 38 months, which started back in June 1986. The central bank forecasts the nation's current account surplus to hit a record $96 billion this year. However, it's not all good news. The surplus comes on the back of imports falling at a faster pace than exports, a surplus trend that reflects sluggish domestic demand. In May, exports fell about 16% on year, while imports dipped nearly 20%.
The current trend could lead to further appreciation of the Korean won, which is already strong against the Japanese yen and euro. measures will need to be taken so that it doesn't erode the price competitiveness of Korean exports.
He added that the surplus trend will continue for some time as the impact of low global oil prices will continue to hurt imports, and the MERS outbreak in the nation has already pulled down consumption. Some experts say that further rate cuts and quick implementation of the supplementary budget are critical to prop up demand. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's politics of fear is being felt beyond the regime's borders. According to sources, some mid-level North Korean officials abroad are choosing to defect to South Korea. Our Connie Kim tells us take a closer look at this phenomenon.
Has the young North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's politics of fear reached such a level that its officials want to escape from the regime? An unnamed source well acquainted with North Korea says that the fear of Kim Jong-un by mid-level North Korean officials abroad has reached a serious point. Serious enough that a significant number of these officials chose to defect to South Korea. As for the higher-ranking members of the regime, the source said high-level officials are less willing to take responsibility for their work to protect themselves from getting into trouble. Another diplomatic source corroborates a source, saying that a low-level official from the North's Labour Party defected to the South, fearing the young leader's reckless leadership. Experts cite a combination of various factors as motivation for the defections.
Officials abroad are probably under tremendous pressure to earn foreign currency for the regime. Also, with exposure to capitalist societies, they realize that the North Korean regime is not in a favorable situation and therefore choose to defect.
Some analysts say Kim's reign of terror is part of the young leader's methods for reaffirming loyalty to the regime, but some warn that it could add to the regime's instability. Last May, South Korea's National Intelligence Service said Kim Jong-un ordered the execution of Defense Minister Hyun Young-chul for disrespecting the upper leadership. The spy agency also added that Kim has approved the executions of around 70 senior officials since coming to power in late 2011. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And North Korea reportedly limits travel for officials residing there to only 8 designated regions, including the capital Pyongyang, Mount Wonsan, and Mount Kumgang. Voice of America reported Thursday that the information was revealed in a document submitted by the British Foreign Office to the upper house of the parliament late last month. It also stated that even with these regions, foreign diplomats and officials from international organizations must first report any travel plans to North Korea's foreign ministry. North Korea and Japan reportedly held unofficial talks last month, according to a Japanese media outlet. Citing a number of unnamed Japanese officials, the Asahi Shimbun reported Thursday that the two sides met in Shanghai on June 20th to discuss the issue of Japanese abductees. The Japanese delegation was headed by Junichi Ihara, Director General of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau of the Foreign Ministry. The report said that Tokyo demanded Pyongyang to swiftly share the findings of its investigation into the fate of the Japanese abductees. Japan has said North Korea must present its findings by July, a year after Tokyo lifted some of its sanctions on Pyongyang for launching new investigations. A survivor of Japan's wartime sex crimes is currently on a week-long visit to the United States. The aging victim is there to share her agonizing past with the world. Our Hwang Sung-hee brings us this story.
90-year-old Kim Bok-dong is in the United States this week to raise awareness about what she endured during World War II. She's one of the 200,000 women who were forced to serve Japanese soldiers at military brothels. The biggest event of her trip was a protest in front of the Japanese embassy in Washington. Despite her age, Kim took part in the protests, calling for an official apology and legal compensation from the Japanese government.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe must apologize and give us legal compensation to recover our dignity as much as he damaged it.
The protest, organized by civic group the Korean Council for the Women Drafted for Military Sexual Slavery by Japan, was attended by American activists as well.
These are historic crimes committed against humanity that we always have to continue to remember why they happened, and lift them up so that we can try to prevent them from happening in the future.
The organizers say the protests will continue until the Japanese government apologizes and compensates the victims. But with the recent passing of a few Korean comfort women, the number of surviving former victims has dwindled to 49, a reminder that time is running out for the women to get the justice they deserve. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Let's move over to the world of sports now. We are less than a day away until the official start of the 2015 Kwangju Universiade in the southern Korean city of Kwangju. This year's event is the largest in the 56-year history of the Universiade, surpassing the previous record from Kazan, Russia in 2012, with roughly 13,000 athletes from 145 countries set to compete this year. Korea is sending its largest Universiade delegation ever, with 516 athletes and officials partaking in all 21 sporting categories. The Kwangju Universiade will run until July 14th. And that's all from us. Thank you for watching. More updates coming your way at 10 p.m. Korea time.